Hey everyone, welcome in. BetSports Golf here for our first look at the 2026 Genesis Invitational. We are back to the Pacific Palisades. We are back to Riviera Country Club, coming off of a very exciting, thrilling finish. Weather be damned, it wasn't that bad, Ron. But Pebble delivered, and Colin Morikawa finally, I don't know, broke the seal after a long drought. What's going on? How are you doing today?
Yeah, doing well. That was just an amazing day of golf. Just the drama. I think this is what the tour wanted with these signature events. You've got the best players. Nobody's missing the cut. Scotty. I didn't go back and look. If I don't think he would have missed the cut if they would have had one, but just the fact that he's so far down, you have that comeback. You have Rory making a run. Obviously, came up a little short, and just so many things down the stretch, from Sam Burns making his choice, taking that iron off the tee. I had a Sam Burns outright. Almost.
I felt for you in that moment. I couldn't believe it. I know the wind was whipping at the moment, but I could not believe that he pulled an iron and dumped it in the rough. No.
Yeah, he's basically playing not to lose there, and you have to go for that. And then Sepp Straka made a good run there at the end. Came up a little short. But yeah, it's I think this is what like I said, the tour wanted, and we have another one this week, and I still would like I think 100 player fields would be better than this week we go down to 72, but I think there's just something about West Coast golf. Now we go to this classical course, Riviera this week, and so conditions are going to be very soft because this entire weather system is coming in around 4 to 5 inches of rain, so. Going to be interesting to see how it plays, and looking forward to getting into it here.
Yeah, considered. I think one of the best, venues in all of professional golf. I think it's just one of the best. It's just this rare combination of just the events that can actually withstand hosting a PGA Tour event aren't always our best venues in American golf. Riviera is both. It hosts. The Genesis Invitational, and is considered one of the best venues in professional golf. And I love when those things marry. This is the last stop on the West Coast swing. We are headed to Florida after this, but we are back to Riviera. And like I said, remember last year, unfortunately, with the California wildfires that pulled us out of here last year. So if you're looking at, anything that's 2025 Genesis Invitational, remember that was just simply Torrey South. Now, it is unique. They are the only two courses on the PGA Tour that have these California POA greens, Kikuyu grass fairways, and rough. So there is some corollary into, Torrey South and Riviera. There's also some pretty solid corollaries between past leaderboards at Augusta. For whatever reason that is. You also see a lot of Aussies historically here, because again, the combination of POA and Kikuyu is also something that's pretty native to Australia as well. Yeah, like you said, another signature event field. This one is a little bit unique though. It is all these invitationals. This is Tiger's event, which is ironic because Tiger never won at Riviera. Not a lot of places that are still in rotation or in rotation at all that Tiger didn't win it. He didn't win at Riviera, but this is Tiger's event. They do maintain a 36-hole cut. So after 36, the top 50 in ties and every player within 10 strokes of the 36-hole leader will make it to the weekend. So there is a scenario where everyone makes the cut. And there's a scenario where it's a pretty decent cut. So, that is a little bit different compared to some of the other signature events. How do you feel about back-to-back signature events? I don't, it's a little bit weird. It is the same field from last week, basically. So we do have that, but it always feels weird for the guys that are just on the outside of that to basically get this, I don't know, unwanted 2-week bye. I don't know. I feel like spreading them out makes sense, but again, you're going to go Riv, Pebble back to back. It makes a lot of sense that way. It's just a little strange to me always.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the schedule, but I'm pretty sure, I don't know if Phoenix was in between one of these. I think Pebble Beach was before, and then they kind of moved it. So yeah, it is. Yeah. I don't like having two small fields back to back, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, Mexico was in there too in a weirder spot. They've definitely yeah, it's shifted a little bit. Like it feels like it's always the same, but there have been a few shifts in the schedule the last couple of years, just in terms of when something is. But yeah, I don't know. It just feels like, all right, same guys as last week. We're running it back. Different course, obviously, different demand, but just same fields. You got a bunch of guys that get the week off again. So, talk to us about Riv again. Reminding folks that everything that we have data wise at BetSports Golf is course specific. Again, you're gonna look at some tools like our tournament cheat sheet and stuff like that. It's going to give you obviously what's happened in this event. But most stuff is course specific. But again, just reminder, last year was Torrey South. Ludwig took care of business there. Last time we were here, though, 2024, it was Hideki going absolutely nuclear on Sunday, chasing down Zalatoris and company. But difficult, narrow off the tee, big greens, but really small greens or bad greens and reg numbers. It's tough here. Firm and fast typically, but again, you're talking about some weather that's going to probably impact that. Obviously, when you have lower greens and reg, around the green comes into play a little bit more. It's basically score on the par fours, par fives, survive the par fours. Tell us what we need to know about Riviera.
Yeah, this is just an interesting course because, when you read some of the player quotes, going back, the one word that keeps popping up is strategic. And so, yeah, it's a par 71. It's right around 7,400 yards. They did increase it around 50 yards. So it is in the longer bucket. So, and again, the course facts page on the rabbit hole that's really the best place to start if you just want just the bare facts. That's all on there. But yeah, this is a George Thomas design. So we're going back to 1926 here. And so this is actually the 100th anniversary of Riviera. There's been a few renovations over the years, but pretty much it's one of those classical courses that, is very close to what it was, back 100 years ago. Don't have that many bunkers, only 58, and 0 water holes. So you're talking about just, taking those things out of the equation for the most part. And, when you get into the just the course itself, off the tee, when you look at the fairways, I went to the course map, and in the 300-yard landing zones, the fairways are 33 yards wide, which is pretty much right around tour average. But when you get past that 300-yard mark, they kind of bottleneck, and it's not just a slow bottleneck; it's a tight bottleneck. And so, for these guys that hit it, 320. You're going to be dealing with some missed fairway penalties. As far as, I should rephrase that. You're going to miss the fairway, but this course is a very low missed fairway penalty. So I think distance is definitely something to be looked at over accuracy this week, especially with the weather coming in and how soft it's going to play. I think distance is an edge this week. And then you look at an approach. So like you said, you have these large greens, 7,500 square feet on average. But the greens and reg is only 56%. And again, it's because the greens are so firm here. It's very hard to hold these greens. And then when you get into scrambling and obviously putting on POA, which is always difficult in itself, very undulating greens. And so you're dealing with fast POA, firm, like you said. It'll be interesting to see how the weather impacts that as far as how firm they can still get these greens. But yeah, it's a challenge. And, when you look at, course history here is big this week. This is the 3rd stickiest course on tour as far as being the most predictive. And something I came across, 17 of the last 19 winners here have played Riv at least 4 times previously. So I think we got around 15, 20 guys who have never played here before. So not saying you should cross those guys automatically off your list, but, past history here is a big key to success. And I'll stop. I just want to read really quick. This Rory McIlroy just had another guy who's never won here either, along with Scotty, Tiger, but had a great quote here. He says, "It's not overly long. You don't have to bomb it off the tee, but it's really strategic. You've got to place your ball on the right sides of the fairway. You have to make sure you hit it to the right side of the green. You cannot short side yourself here. It's a real thinker's golf course, and it's a treat to play something like this because we don't get to play courses like this anymore." So I think that sums it up pretty well as far as, I think distance will be more impactful this week, but it's kind of, every shot in the bag, kind of anybody can win. And
yeah,
I think using the rabbit hole, especially focusing on, our filter where we have difficult greens, and throwing the POA filter in there. I think all that stuff comes into play this week.
Yeah, really good call. The players love it. I mean, it seems like across the board, it's definitely one of the favorites. It's definitely missed last year. You can see here on the core stats page, we do not have the 2025 data in here because it was not at this event. So again, we have the past leaderboard at the bottom for Ludwig's win, but you're not looking at the data up here in the core stats page. So really important to differentiate again that we were not here last year. So, everything's just a little harder than I think a standard tour event, which is I think a good way to sum it up. It is definitely a week to I think look at course history, as you said. You can get a little bit of that here if you go into our tournament cheat sheet. So cheat sheet is going to give you just kind of rolling strokes gain metrics. It's going to give you recent form by the means of finishing position, and then going to give you course history as well. You can obviously mess around with time frames. Again, really just the cheat sheet as it's laid out. Like it's not going to get super granular. It's not going to get as granular as the core stats page will do for you. It's not going to get as granular as a lot of the filtering you're going to be able to do in the rabbit hole. But if you just wanted to get a sense of overall, how's everyone playing? What have they done here before? Here's just, again, recent form based off of, finishing positions as of late. You can see like someone like, Jake Knapp, Siwoo Kim, they've been playing a lot and they've been playing really well. And then you can get into course history, again, blank here for 2025, but this is how everyone's finished here historically. So if you were to look at 2025, here's Hideki. This kind of speaks to Ron's point. If you were to go down and look at the winner of the previous year, you've seen some really good golf, right? Like this is these California guys right here, right? This is there's four of them at the top, and then an Aussie who we talked about earlier with again the Kikuya fairways and POA greens, like Thigala, Morikawa, Cantley, Homa, all with a lot of success here, all California guys. You're going to get a sense of, to Ron's point, who's come here often and who's played well anytime that they've been here. So it's one way for you to use that if you wanted. Let's look at the odds. Look at our friends over here at FanDuel's odds. Scotty 340. I mean, I don't know what to say about the guy. I mean, to be honest, like if he played, I don't know, 50th percentile Scotty on Thursday in Scottsdale and Thursday at Pebble, we'd be talking about Scotty going for 3 in a row here, and this number would be like 2-1, right? He was within a shot of the playoff at Scottsdale, and there was a large chunk of time on Sunday, shockingly, where he was the live leader. He was the favorite live with everything that was going on. And I think at that point he was on such a run early, and I think we thought the forecast was going to be a little bit more problematic than it was for those guys still out there with a lot more holes, and it just never really materialized, right? It wasn't easy out there, obviously, but it obviously didn't get to the spot where getting your round done and posting a number was as advantageous as maybe we thought. But again, as someone who bet him as a solo bullet on Thursday, Ron, I didn't think I had a Sunday sweat coming, which is almost assured anytime you're betting Scotty that you're going to have a sweat on Sunday. But I mean, we had that and more. He's terrifying without Scheffler markets. I understand. Again, he's not had elite course history here, doesn't have a ton of reps, but I mean, you're going to tell me strategic, right side of the fairway, controlling your golf ball, not short siding yourself. Like anytime you get into these discussions, you're just like, well, he's the best golfer in the world by margin. Any course is going to be a course that's set up for him really well, regardless of what he's done. So Rory, again, made a mess of Saturday, but otherwise played some really good golf. Rory, it was kind of like, it was funny. It's the stuff that Rory was talking about, how he needs to close the gap to Scotty. He needs to eliminate the bad rounds and the blow up holes, and like posting doubles and triples is going to make a mess of things out there and killed him. Otherwise, he played some really good golf. Xander 20, Hideki 22, Tommy 25, Russ, Cantley, Cam Young at 27. Another kind of group here at 30-33 range with Burns, Morikawa, got her up Hovland, Siwoo, BG, and Ricky, who also folded like a cheap shirt on Saturday. Bobby Mack, Fitz, Rose, Ludwig, Scott, McNeely, and Knapp at 40. Minwoo as well, who Minwoo surprised me. I did not expect Minwoo to play really well at Pebble. He did. So again, another handful of guys in that like 45 range. But again, same fields as last week, and then we take a pretty big drop here post Jason Day. So any thoughts on early prices? Not bets, but just kind of how it lays out.
It's a tough board. And like you think about it, it's almost becoming a psychological operation here because Scotty's hasn't won 2 in a row. So you kind of think, well, we're getting into 33% now if he wins this week, which is below his average.
True.
So, I know you haven't taken him last week. I don't know what number you would bite at, but for me, it's like, okay, 2 in a row. He's better odds than he was last week in a smaller field already. And, we'll see what happens with him. But, you look at his, 10th last year, or I'm sorry, in 24, he was 10th and then 12th and then 7th. So it's, he's got some good reps here. He's kind of entering this will be his 7th trip here. So, he checks that course history box, but it's just like, I need to see what happens, kind of that middle tier of the board. This is not somewhere I'm going to like be going further down the board for sure. I think the California guys are really interesting. It's just hard to trust Max Homa. Like, he's someone who just jumps off the page, perfect course for him. But, is he all the way back yet? I think last time I looked, he was down around 90 to 1. And then Cantlay, Cantlay's another guy with the best course history here by far. And, you kind of it's just so hard to bite on him too, because, but then again, Morikawa shocked us last week. Morikawa.
Yeah.
Morikawa was a great DFS value. He was only 7,500, but there was no way I thought he was going to win last week with how he looked, his recent form so far this year. So, yeah, it's a tricky week, but I don't know. I think I'm kind of leaning towards what you were doing last week, kind of maybe just going all in on Scotty this week and just playing the percentages here.
I know. I made a video on Friday afternoon for to go out for emails, and I didn't know, like, I had done some of the filtering live. I hadn't looked at the data previously, and it was funny on Friday, and I looked simply at difficult to gain off the tee and greens and reg, when it's difficult to hit greens and reg, and ball striking tee to green in that sample. The best was Morikawa, right? It was not pulling any Pebble data. It's just absolutely nuts to think about. We have, obviously, that data is better. So, he's been tough on Sundays in particular. The putter has been problematic. The ball striking, really, even though it maybe felt like he took a step back, really didn't. He's still been, pretty elite. Now, again, the demand in terms of approach shots being from a little bit longer this week, right? Is a little bit different than some of the wedge fests. Again, not a weakness of Morikawa's at all. So still very much in play. He was going to be very tempting for me here this week if the number was going to drift. But kind of solved that for me. I'm probably not double tapping, Morikawa to go back to back. Now, again, you can make the argument that for Cantlay for the same reasons. Like, all right, we're just kind of these guys that have had these long droughts, these top 20 players worldwide that have had these 2-year droughts. Like, we're looking at 22 Caves Valley for Patrick Cantlay for a win. Like, that's a very long time. A great playoff battle with Bryson, right? So that's all you need to know. Bryson was a PGA Tour member the last time that we had a Patrick Cantlay victory. So, yeah, obviously, UCLA kid has played, obviously not just probably most competitive reps here, relative. I mean, Adam Scott's been here all the time, but like, he's also played here a ton just as an AM coming up. So his course knowledge here is pretty vast. Those guys are tempting, but to your point, like Scotty thing, you start playing around with the math, and it's like, he thought he played well. He was frustrated with how he played on Thursday because he didn't think he was off on Thursday. He just felt like he was missing by, inches here and there, and felt really, really close. And it's like, man, you can throw up a 63 with 3 bogeys when you go pin hunting. what prevents you from doing that a little bit more often? Like, I get it. Like, I get that he sometimes is so safe and play to the, fat part of the green and never leave yourself short-sided and, make sure that you're on the right side of the fairway. But man, you could see that like extra gear in terms of distance off the tee. I feel like another level that we could actually see with this guy, which is terrifying jumping into the outright market against him, which is, I know, feels prisoner of the moment, but the moment is now 3 years, right? So like the moment isn't just like the last couple of weeks. It is a 3-year moment. Stuff. Oh, you muted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my bad. The cool thing even yesterday is with our live leaderboard, just being able to go in there and see what he was doing. Like, I'm pretty sure I read that's the most strokes he's ever gained putting. But just to see that he actually made 150 feet of putts, I was just kind of tracking that as the day went on, and that number just kept going higher and higher. And, obviously his par 5 scoring average was 3.25 yesterday. Obviously he tore up those par 5s. And so again, I think, I got a lot of messages from people who started to use the live leaderboard to kind of bet live and, had some really good success, even on Morikawa, just seeing Morikawa's proximity numbers, and his ball speed. Morikawa's ball speed was up at least, I think, 3 to 4 miles an hour this week as well. So a couple people noticed that in the first round and messaged me about that. So I just think this is another tool that we have that, especially if you live bet, just a great way to get more insight into kind of what's happening inside the stats and, let that kind of lead you going forward here as a great tool to use every week.
Yeah. Live leaderboard, absolute like hack for micro betting, live betting, round by round betting, just get a little bit more granular look at what happened that day as you kind of look at the, odds for the next round as they pop up, beyond just simply the basic, this guy had great ball striking numbers and the putting was bad. And like, let's just, look for a bounce back. You can get significantly more granular. Yeah. Here you can see round 4, Scotty made, 150 feet of putts. That's, seems pretty good. Hovland couldn't make a thing. These are all tap-ins. Thor not built for pebbles. That was a struggle bus for him. This is Akshay, again, real tough in that moment with his position on the board. Could not make a putt either. Didn't really threaten the hole. So Jake Knapp's been awesome, but a lot of it's been the putter and did not make putts either. So again, you can look at this round by round. It's live. It is, by live, I mean like instantaneous. It is you can watch this with the TV and you're getting the data instantly. So huge edge if you were looking to just want to bet whole data, like based on how you see a guy's actually striking the ball and playing. There's a lot of little edges here for you too. Before we jump back into it, just while we're talking tools, question here in the chat: can I use the rabbit hole to figure out break-even prices on nationality bets? The rabbit hole, no. But a lot of times, so we talk about the rabbit hole. It's like BetSports Golf is the rabbit hole, and like it's the opposite. The rabbit hole is part of BetSports Golf. We have a million tools. We've showed you some of them here today. One of the other ones that we do have as well is a pre-tournament simulation. But there's also the ability to go in and do custom matchups. So let me show this to you guys here as well. Now, you can do nationality bets in the sense that like you can customize it, right? You could do simply head-to-heads. You could do 3 balls. You can mess around if this is round or event. You can mess around with how ties are handled, whether they're a void or a loss, and you would just customize it. You go in simply and put the player's name in, put in the odds, and it's going to give you here the probability to win, to tie, and then the actual break-even odds here and what the expected value is. So can you use the rabbit hole to do it? No. Can you use BetSports Golf to do it? Yes, which I think is really important. So one of the tools is DFS Optimizer, like the live leaderboard we talked about. We've already looked at some of the tools today with the course database, tournament cheat sheet. The player pages, I think, are elite. Some of my favorite things to get really super granular on the player database is there for you as well. So hope that helps. But the rabbit hole deserves all of its flowers because it's incredible. But we have a lot more here at BetSports Golf for you as well. All right, let's go into some of the. Is there anything on the core stats page that you want to look at? Well, let's see how they got it done. Let's go back to Hideki here, our last time here, 2024, and how Hideki got it done. Again, insane run. 9 under, blacked out, chased down Zalatoris. It was painful. I had a Zalatoris ticket here. It was good to see Zal back and was playing some good golf. And, when Hideki does this, it's almost like it's just Scotty that I feel like when we're looking at like peak Hideki, when he just goes to another level, there's almost no one better in the world. And that's definitely what happened on Sunday. If we look at his, strokes gains, he gained, almost 8.5 strokes on the field. Approach was insane, made every putt, scrambled his face off. He's just one of the best, short game players in the world. He got just out of his mind. So anything that sticks out to, our last time here in 2024?
Yeah, I just remember Xander having a chance and just not getting it done, and then you see Cantlay +1. So kind of my two biggest concerns with Cantlay, especially Xander's interesting this week though. Xander looked good in flashes at Pebble, and so he might be someone on my radar here. But I think the approach proximity, the key buckets this week are 150 to 200. So we kind of moved from a wedge fest at Pebble to kind of more of a short to mid iron test. And so I think that's another thing I'm going to look at more this week is those proximity buckets.
I don't want to overrate this, but this is something that I do like to do typically. Because look, these are elite tour pros, right? They're elite golfers. But there are times where you feel like, hey, mid event when you really weren't in it, what do you do on Sunday? Can you go out and find something to like figure it out, get yourself in position to cash a bigger check or to carry something over the weekend? Because I remember looking last night and I wanted to see what it was. Because in my mind too, I'm like, Xander's actually probably pretty interesting. He feels a little bit off the radar. And I just wanted this to be a little bit better. His Sunday finish at Pebble. So again, I don't want to overrate it, but I would like to see Xander not losing strokes on approach. The putter did a lot of his work here on Sunday. Approach was also not great on Saturday. But again, to your point, we're looking at a lot of wedges, a lot of, for a guy like Xander with, his off the tee game, a lot of those shots are probably 125 and in, whereas the demand at Riviera is going to be, 170 plus. So it is not necessarily an apples to apples comparison, but sometimes I like to look at the guy that I feel really maybe interested in. I want to see what he did, maybe on the weekend at the previous event, especially when he had just heated up. So that was one that caught my eye. And this is another one I thought Hovland would be interesting. This was terrifying to me. Again, this is a prototypical situation where he's going to benefit from the longer irons. He's one of the best, if not, well, he's not the best, but he's one of the best long iron players in the world. So he's going to benefit from that. But I wanted these numbers to be a little bit better. Now the approach was better on Sunday, but just kind of leading strokes tee to green wasn't great on Hovland. So again, another way to use some of the tools to help in support of model building or making player card decisions and stuff like that. So let's go back here. So look, you can see around the green's going to matter because you're going to miss greens, but you can see here if you strike it really well, like Luke listed on approach for the week, like Cantlay did on approach for the week, you kind of get away with not having a great around the green week. And again, around the green is a little bit more variant, I think, than other stats because of the nature in which they can be collected. There's, I think, just a little bit more variance there. But again, you see everyone here putting it pretty well. You have to putt it really well if you're not really gaining tee to green or gaining on ball striking. That's what kind of jumps out to me. California guys, Aussies. Scotty can make a putt here clearly, and actually wasn't great on approach, which is I think interesting too. I don't give it a lot of credence moving forward, but I think it's just interesting in hindsight.
Yeah, and if you scroll up to the kind of the course metrics, and if you go, let's see, where is the are the charts not showing up on your end?
Maybe I've had this open, so let me refresh it.
Okay, that must be why.
Yeah,
because around the green, I think is interesting this week if you look at the percentages. So, Short grass, you see an increase. So the average tour course has 40% shots hit from kind of fairway tight lie areas. You see here at Riv, it's almost 47%. And then, the other ones, you see a little bit less on the rough. You see bunkers are pretty close to average. And so, a little more emphasis on tighter lies. But you can also see, by the green shading, it's easier than average as well. So this is not a difficult around the green course. But again, because so many greens are missed here, there is more of an emphasis on being at least competent around the greens. And so, I think that is something to, probably weigh it a little heavier in your model this week than you did last week, where it was just so easy at Pebble, around those greens to kind of scramble and save par. And, you have 3 par 5s this week that are also pretty easy. And so, guys going for it into, a lot of times they are going to be around the green area as well. So you're going to get a lot of short shots, chips from that area. But yeah, there's just a lot of tools, even in these charts, to kind of show you, obviously the red is tougher than the tour average, green is easier. And you can see there the proximity bucket's a huge increase from 150 to 200.
Yeah, another thing too, we touched on it a little bit last week, and I think it is also still relevant here. Maybe not quite as much as it was last week, but when we move into the signature event era, our fields are stronger here. So when you're looking at like a lot of older historic data for how this course is played, some of the difficult things have like kind of narrowed a little bit because again, the field strength is just better, right? So your overall player that's teeing it up this week, signature event, small field, is just going to be a better average performer than what the field was, 4 years ago or whatnot. So when it's kind of some of this data is shrinking, like some of the putting data, it's a difficult place to putt. You can see this is nothing but red, but if you kind of look at some of the trend lines, if we were to make a trend line when you're looking at, say, putting ranges made, when I was looking at this a little bit yesterday, this has been pretty bad, right? Like, look at this. I mean, if we're looking at this 2021, like, man, they 83.5% is 5% below PGA Tour average from 3 to 5 feet. Well, 2024, it was 90%. Same thing. We go to 4 to 8. That jumped up to almost 70 versus 61.5. Now, again, you can have some weather pockets of why things changed or soft greens or whatnot, and there's definitely scenarios where that's the case when some of this data kind of, starts to look a little bit different. But I do think we want to remember that strong fields do impact this stuff as well. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good call. And that's why you'll see a lot of these with all the addition of these signature events. And I can't remember. I'm pretty sure can you remember how big was the field here last year? I think it was still small like this, wasn't it? 80?
Last time we were at, it was smaller at
okay.
Last time we were here.
So you're just tightening the player pool so much, and with these elite players, and so naturally, these rates are gonna get a little easier.
Yeah. When you're looking at some of this stuff, I think it closes the gap. So I would be careful weighing it too much. But again, it is noteworthy, and again, still red across the board. It just maybe a little less red, I guess. It's a softer red than a bright red than maybe it was, say, in 2020, 2021 when we had your standard full field and not everyone was coming here, right? So this is what you were talking about too, right? So we have just a significantly more, like last week we were living in the 100 to 150 range, even 50 to 100. A lot of second shots from less than 100 yards, whereas pretty much everything here we're living in a lot of this 150 to 200, even bigger than normal. And then even the 225 to 250, we're getting those longer par 3s, those second shots on par 5s where you need to score here on the par 5s. So those need to be really important second shots, because the par 5s are, like you said at the top, where you score and you kind of try to hold on to the end. So, all right. And again, remember Ludwig for yourself. All right, let's take a look at some stuff in the rabbit hole, and a couple of things we can look at here before we say goodbye to everyone. I want to take a look at that when I pulled for the video and show people here. Going to the so again, you can look at this if you're looking at this for the first time. Intimidating, totally get it. There are so many different things to look at. The view section is your friends. A lot of different views. A lot of where you're going to do the majority of your research. You can do this and look at it through no filtering of any conditions. Just kind of look at simply how guys are playing, scoring and par fours or whatever you want to look at. You can add specific conditions to all of that as well. And I think it is important to do so. I think it's, looking at whether it's, these three at the very top, I think are super important depending on the week: scoring conditions, course length, field strength. Again, I always want to remind people, sorry if you listen all the time. We appreciate you. BetSports Golf podcast, BetSports Golf on the YouTube channel. Subscribe. We're getting close to some good subscribe numbers. So subscribe if you're hanging out for the first time. Be very careful of reading Ron's preview, which you 1,000% should be reading. It's the best preview that you could find on the internet. And then looking at, he'll tell you rabbit hole course filters that he's suggesting. Be very careful of combining a bunch of them at the same time. Look at all those filters, but make sure you're looking at them kind of independently of each other. Don't go in and just set all the conditions and then run apply and then be like, hey, it's not pulling any data, or it's giving me 4 rounds. It's because you just filtered all the data and you're just kind of looking at literally the last time we were here, right? So just be careful about over fitting some of the stuff. Some of it I think is not super actionable. I think it's interesting, but I don't know that it's super actionable. So careful that way. What I was looking at was gaining off the tee. So if you go into where we just were, this is how you kind of use the two tools to tell to combined. It shows here it is strokes gained off the tee, very difficult. Also tells you here greens and reg accuracy, difficult. So let's use those two in combination with each other to get a sense of who's played well, because it's a very specific ball striking demand when you can have those two together. So I want to weed out basically anything that would be easy off the tee. So I'm going to go very difficult and difficult. If you wanted to go average, it's fine. I think if it was difficult, personally, this is how I use it. If our rating for this was difficult off the tee, I'd include average. If it's very difficult, I'm just going to include difficult and very difficult. Greens and reg, also difficult. If you want to include average, go for it. It's going to make your sample a little bit bigger. You'd be simply trying to pull out anything where greens and reg accuracy is easy. But I just want to see what the sample is. I'll mess around, see what we get, and take a look at it from there. All right, last 6 months isn't going to get it done, but let's look here, say last 2 years, and see what our sample is. So again, 40-ish rounds is pretty good. Look at the average strokes gained in this section. Total is Scotty. If you're going, simply we're looking at ball striking, basically. Maybe I went 3 years. That gave Colin the bump. We see Scotty at the top, separating a little bit. Colin right there. Shane Lowry's played well in these situations. Henley, Rico, not going to scare the hole at all, but can ball strike it with the best of them. Corey Connors, Bud Cauley, Tom Hoagie, Max McGreevy, and again, this very specific data set. And again, if you want to see what those rounds were, you can actually click into the little rounds button here and find that data for you as well. If we mess around and go back, say, actually, I think this is what I did. I like doing this too. You just want to go back to the start of 2025. So you would get all of last year and everything that's happened so far this year. Let's see what that does to our set. It makes it a little bit smaller, obviously. And there's where you get Colin. So small sample, but Colin pops above Scotty. You get other similar names. Sepp steps up there. Bobby Mack, Spawn. Again, small-ish sample for these guys, but again, a very specific sample as well. That's one way to look at it.
Yeah, and then the beauty of the rabbit hole is if you wanted to take just maybe a similar but broader perspective is what I do what you did as well, but then I'll also go to the course difficulty filter and I'll select, you did off the tee. I'll just go in general. Now, again, when you look at this course, it's right around even par on average over the last 5 years. So this is where I would go. And obviously you're going to have soft conditions. So I'll go average, I'll go difficult, and I'll just go those two. And again, if you want to go very difficult, you can, but I think with the strength of the field, and then I'll combine field strength here and I'll go strong, very strong fields. And I take my samples a little wider back than you do. This is something I would look at, probably 3 years. Not sure what we'll get. Should get a pretty good sample for this field for 3 years.
For sure.
But yeah, and you see there, yeah. So just a different way to look at it, and the beauty of the rabbit hole is you could take 3 years and you could weigh it at a certain percentage. You could go take 1 year and you could weigh it at a percentage. So you could kind of create your own rolling, weighted model here where you take different lengths, different rounds, different time periods, and you just click that little plus button and you build your model, and it's really that simple. So I know a lot of people first time they're like, we do have a tutorial video on here as well. If you go to the top of the screen, the link's up there for a tutorial. But under the one you made too, under the create the model button, that one's still there too. So that's a really good short one if you just want like a 3-minute clip on how to build a model. So yeah, there's just so many ways you could build, and you could combine both together. You could build one like I just did and build one Ryan did, and I even had someone message me who they actually took all the expert models for last week and they just averaged them all together. And I forget what their slip was, what it was, but they had a very productive week just by taking the average of every model, that all the expert models together.
Anything is available to download to a CSV. So if you are Excel handy, you can go ahead and do that, and that makes it very, very, very easy for you as well, where you can kind of take that data out here too. Also, like we look at this sample specifically, and you see 2 players that pop with very small samples in this. You can also set a minimum round feature that would kind of, again, it would hurt them if you have interest in Marco Penge or Rico Hoey in this. Like, it's going to pull them out, but also you don't want to like give them too much credit for what they've done in just 6 rounds when we're looking at competing against players that have between 64 and 92 rounds of this data set. So, and this is, again, I think a foundational piece of the week. 1,000% will have something like this in my model as well. I think this is just what, like, Andy and I build models on the Tuesday betting show. Come back for that. That is on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. This is what we would call like an anchor stat. This is basically just like all right, I want to make sure I'm not creating such a granular model that I'm not going to get the best players, but I'm not just using like some just blind rankings. I want to do something that's kind of filtering out the data that's relevant to the test this week, right? So this is just scoring in field, and field strength is, I think, a great way to do it. So, and this shows you the guys that separate in the sample. Scotty, Xander, Rory, Tommy, Hideki, Cantley, Harris English, Ludwig. I mean, these are the best players in the fields, which makes a ton of sense. So it's a great way to build it. Like Ron said, if you want to see it, I'm not finished my model, so it's going to take us to my model. It's going to have a bunch of stuff in there. So all you need to do is hit the add. It's going to pop up this. You can make a note. So I can just go, scoring. It's, again, you can use this, up to you if you want to put anything here. And then field. So again, whatever you want to do, add it. It'll tell you right here, it's been saved. And then you go into the create model section and it's going to be there. It's going to populate. You can see here, this is it right here, scoring in fields. And then you can simply click this little button here and it's going to tell you all the filters that you had on it. So we looked 3 years. We looked at, this is the scoring conditions we looked at, and this is the field strength, right? We put a minimum round feature and we looked at the golfers that are in the Genesis field. So the little icon will pop up that for you too. If you just want to look at other people's models, expert model section here, we got a bunch. We have, Ron's got our key stats model that's on the homepage. Matt Vicenzi is covering live, but still, really good outright better. His model is worth looking at. Joe and John Hausbauer from the Preferred Lines podcast, 2 very sharp golf bettors. Their models are in here. Mayo does his research show over the weekend. This is his model from that. Mine here in the next hour or so. Andy Molitor will be in here as well. So if you want to see other people's, just kind of go from there. Another great way to, use wisdom of the crowd if the actual modeling process for you is not something that you love, or it can be intimidating. Because again, without getting even into the filter by condition section, if you're just in the views alone, there is just so much. It is an awesome resource, and love hearing more and more people get more comfortable, find out ways that they use it for their game. There's so many ways to bet on this game. So finding out how you want to use it and how it fits you. Love to hear those stories. Like, they saw in the Discord that the guy had used a bunch of models and put them together and just made bets from that. I think that's awesome. Use it for player pools, for DFS, all those different things. So I think that's a good foundational build for Riviera. I'm excited to get this one back on our TV. Some fantastic holes, thoughtful holes, all the shots and all the clubs in the bag. These are the golf courses that I absolutely love to watch. Anything else you want to say before we wrap?
Way driving distance a little more this week with the soft conditions. I think that's going to be impactful. And then bogey avoidance. That's another one on a course like this where people always are like birdie or better, but your ability to avoid bogeys is huge this week. And so that's something I'll be looking at and kind of mixing it in with a course difficulty filter and obviously trying to recreate the course as best you can through the filters.
Yep. See, I got bogey avoidance in mind from 2024. Still playing around with some of my filtering and weights and stuff like that for my model this morning, but I totally agree with Ron there. So again, reach out specifically if you have questions. If you're not a subscriber, BSG 26, BetSports Golf 26, 25% off any subscription. So if you just wanted to come in for a week or a month and check it out, obviously the annual is going to get you the best deal. But that promo code is available on the site. If you're a subscriber, join the Discord. Great community. If you have specific questions, you can tag Ron and I. We're in there every day. We're not just necessarily hanging out in there. So if you tag us, we'll come in. But we're definitely available for questions. Ron does, answers. We say he's got an AMA on Wednesday before lineup lock and all that stuff. Ron's in there all the time for you too. So just tag us specifically with any questions. And a great community too. Smart people that are betting on all tours and can definitely, ideas to bounce stuff off of people too, which is, a big piece of the pie. Winning is fun. Winning together with a group is awesome. So we absolutely love that. So again, BetSports Golf, wherever you listen to podcasts, and also on the YouTube as well. 2 shows every week. Lots of other little videos, tidbits we share as well. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us again, as always. Again, hit subscribe.